Okay, this is Lauren Burke. This is Lauren Live. And I got to tell you, I'm going to go over once again Gary Chambers, who is really just brilliant. I should actually just run a fan club for him because he is unbelievable. His analysis is always unbelievable. The things that he brings up, and in this case on Jasmine Crockett and what happened with regard to her loss to James Talarico this week. It is Saturday, March 7th, 2026. I am in Virginia, in Southern Virginia today. I got to tell you, this level of analysis is amazing. He did 3 videos, Gary Chambers, and all 3 of them are spectacular. I'm going to run part of the open. I'll be back in a second. This is really about the fact that black voters are not coming out like they should. It can be about strategy and other things as well, but that's a big takeaway here. But we'll get into it after this. Once again, this is Lauren Burke. This is Lauren Live. Let's go over Gary Chambers and his analysis of the Crockett Talarico race this week. Obviously, as everybody knows, Jasmine Crockett lost to James Talarico in a fairly close race, but it wasn't razor thin. He had better organization. There was all sorts of discussion about whether or not she had, the proper amount of door knocking, the proper amount of voter outreach, the proper amount of outreach to influencers in the community, black media, etc., and so on. Whether or not her campaign was really up to the task on some of these basic level operations that good campaigns have. Let's listen to Gary Chambers though, because Gary Chambers is really good at this. And man, I'm telling you, this is what he said right after the election was over. I mean, he's put out now, I think, 3 or 4 videos on the election. But they're all sort of saying generally the same thing. But let's just do this one right here because this is anyone you choose is a winner. But I'm telling you, this is.
I'm gonna show you how James Talarico won the Texas primary in 6 counties, and then I'm gonna show you how Jasmine Crockett lost the Texas primary in 5 counties. Talarico wins by 144,000 votes. Remember that number. James Talarico picked up the majority of his lead in Austin in Travis County, where he got a 112,000 vote lead on Jasmine Crockett because he won by 163,000 votes to 51,000 votes. Austin is 8% black. Then in Williamson, which is also about 8% black, Talarico picks up 28,000 vote lead over Crockett, where he gets 46,000 votes to her 18,000. In El Paso, majority Hispanic, he picks up another 17,000 votes. In Hidalgo, which is also majority Hispanic, he picks up another 23,000 vote lead, 41,000 to 18,000. Crockett gets about 30% of the Hispanic vote.
Now, remember, the Hispanic vote really was the whole ball game here. This was something I think that was under discussed. Everybody always sort of talks about the black vote or this or that. It was really the Hispanic vote that decided this race in a lot of ways. He goes over that in detail and goes over the fact, of course, too, that Talarico was very focused on that segment.
In Hayes County, he's got a 15,000 vote lead, 24,000 to 8,000. And in Webb County, he gets a 15,000 to 7,500 votes, which gives him a 7,000 vote lead. In Dallas County, Texas, where Representative Crockett is from, she beats Talarico 163,000 to 110,000. She has a 52,000 vote lead. There are 500,000 black people in Dallas County. In Fort Bend County, Representative Crockett gets 51,000 votes to Talarico's 30,000 votes. She beats him by 20,000. There's 180,000 people that are black in Fort Bend County. In Harris County, Texas, which has 1 million black people, Representative Crockett wins 189,000 to 170,000. She beats Talarico by 19,000 votes in Harris County, Texas. In Tarrant County, Texas, Representative Crockett wins 103,000 to 82,000. She beats him by 20,000 votes. there are 400,000 black people.
Now think about that. 400,000 black people in Tarrant County, 103,000 vote for Crockett. And what he's saying is as Jesse Jackson Sr., who's been laid the rest today in Illinois, what he's saying is there's a lot of rocks laying around doing nothing in terms of voting. That is clearly where he's about to go with this.
In Tarrant County, Texas. In Jefferson County, Texas, which is where Beaumont is, Representative Crockett beats Talarico 14,000 to 3,069, 11,226 vote lead over Talarico. There are 85,000 black people in Jefferson County.
85,000 black people in Jefferson County, only 14,000 votes over there. 85,000. Now you figure, okay, a lot of those people are too young to vote. They may be in some ways otherwise ineligible, but who knows? But you know doggone well that if there's 85,000 black people in that county in Jefferson and only 14,000 people voted, you've got to be kidding. There should be at least another 20,000 on top of that total.
What are you saying, Gary? People talk about a whole of Texas strategy, and because Talarico won all of these areas, it is a logic that he did so well. The truth is he won by 144,000 votes. A lot of these counties, some of them have 100 plus votes, 500 votes, 700 votes. The majority of the people who decided this election were in Austin and the surrounding areas, and in Dallas and Houston and the surrounding areas. And that's how these elections always fall in Texas. James Talarico ran up the score in the whitest area of Texas on Jasmine Crockett, while the million black people that live in Harris County, a bunch of y'all just said, fuck it. Now his strategy, I do not.
A million people in Travis. And here it is. She's at 51,000 votes.
I deny was white voters and Hispanic voters. And the lead came from Austin. Not against James Talarico. I think he's a good candidate. I'm not ignoring that he had strong messaging. I also understand his strategy. Chuck Rocha, who helped him develop his strategy, worked for me when I ran for the U.S. Senate in 2022. So I understand the logic. I am telling you that the general is not one with that logic, because black voter turnout has to increase drastically in order for Texas to flip blue.
Exactly. And that was why so many advocates for Jasmine Crockett wanted her, because the base of the party, the base of the Democratic Party is black voters. The number one turnout group for black voters is black women. Number two is black men. So now you're running somebody who doesn't appeal to the base particularly. I mean, not to say he doesn't. Again, Talarico is a good candidate. So that's not the thing. But you would think that the party would be a lot more interested in running somebody who represents the base that gets those voters out, those base voters out.
I am trying to tell black people something, though. Why is it enough for us that 189,000 people voted for Jasmine Crockett in Harris County when there's a million black people in Harris County? Especially when we know that Representative Crockett was getting over 90% of the black vote. I want black people to recognize that elections are about turnout and tribes. People pick their tribes, they turn out their tribes to get to the general.
And not only that, and yeah, Steve, you're right. Nobody wants to deal with the reality that Latinos have a big voting bloc in Texas. Absolutely. They are actually the biggest ethnic group in Texas. They're right a little bit in front of white folks. Well, of course, white folks is not an ethnic group, but you know, for the purposes of our political discussion, we're going to do white, black, and Hispanic. Obviously, white folks represent a lot of different groups. You could be Polish American, Irish American. You could be white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. You could be Italian American. You could be a lot of things. So, but I'm going to say white just for the political conversation right now. The point, though, is that of course Latinos have a huge thing to say here. And in fact, I think in a lot of ways decided this election. Talarico really did a good job at paying attention to that voting bloc.
And what happens is the people who get their tribe there, they make the other tribes join them. So black voters are always having to come and join white voters and Hispanic voters because we don't maximize where we got 500,000 black people, 180,000 black people in Fort Bend County, and only 51,000 votes for Jasmine Crockett in Fort Bend County. Talarico turned out who would turn out for him. Because if you take out Travis County, Williamson County, and Hayes County, all about 8% black, Talarico doesn't get there because his 140,000 vote win starts in Travis County.
Yeah, and so again, there's so many black voters. Obviously, Texas is the state that has more black people than any other state in the United States. The question is, how do you get them to the polls? How do you get your voters to the polls is the question of every election. What your win number is, and that win number is the whole ball game, is the whole question of these elections. And for whatever reason, Crockett's campaign did not answer that. And when you hear things about not hearing about robos, about cross endorsements, about coordinated campaigns. One of the situations appears to be that there was no real coordinated campaign, meaning that she was coordinated with other candidates on the ballot that alongside of her to share in the pushing out of each other's votes. Apparently, there was no coordinated campaign. Usually, when you're in the higher office, you are the leader of the coordinated campaign.
Black people, we got to start and finish with who starts and finishes with us. And at the end, when the general comes, the conversation in Texas is always where the black voters in Houston, in Dallas, and the surrounding areas, because these elections have come down to 40,000 votes. Now, this may not matter to you, but it does to me. In the history of America, there have only been 12 black people to serve in the U.S. Senate. 5 of them currently serve. One of them is a Republican who could give a shit about what the majority of black people in America want. So for me, considering that 80 to 85 white people get elected to the U.S. Senate every term, I'm always pushing for a black person to be able to get to the furthest distance possible to help advance more black people in this country. And I live in Louisiana, next door to Texas in the deep South. A lot of that shit y'all talk about in the progressive movement, you don't even come down here in the South to try and make sure that these things get fixed in the areas that it's the worst in.
That's true. They don't. The Democratic Party doesn't put any investment in Louisiana. It's incredible. And there's enough voters out there to make it an interesting conversation. And Democratic Party's not trying to have a conversation in Louisiana, which is very strange. The point that is made in the chat with regard to Steve, judging how strong a campaign is based off how many people are willing to work for free. I couldn't agree more. And you're right. Talarico had 30,000 volunteers. I mean, 30,000 people decided. And I don't care if they're young people, college students, it doesn't matter. That's a person out there working for free. That's a person out there campaigning and knocking a door and handing out flyers and all of that, working for free and probably doing the poll work at the end where they, sit at the polls on election day. That is voter education. That's a voter contact. And that's all happening with free labor because people are into your campaign and excited about your campaign. Look, I do think this is a situation where the Democratic Party had an embarrassment of riches. I think both candidates were quite good. Talarico definitely is a special type of candidate, and I think Jasmine Crockett was a special type of candidate. Talarico won, and it will be interesting to see if he can pull it off in November. I'll definitely be watching this race. I don't think Talarico can beat the Republican. That's Drew City 24-26. In a wave year, maybe. I mean, if in fact the Democrats can pull it off, this would be the year. But certainly Beto O'Rourke was a great candidate as well. And he wasn't able to pull it off, which is amazing. He was a good candidate. I actually think Talarico is a better candidate than Beto O'Rourke. But also Talarico does have timing on his side and the wind at his back because this is a wave election year. No doubt about it. This is a wave election year. And if there's any time that the Democrats can pull this off, this is it. Ordinarily, I would totally agree, Drew. It's like, it is a red state. I don't care what anybody says. Texas is a red state. They haven't won since Ann Richards. I mean, totally hear that. And this is going to be very, very difficult for Talarico because whether or not, although I will say Paxton running would be a huge advantage. You could get some stars that come into alignment for Talarico that are very advantageous, like running against the right guy. If it's John Cornyn, I think it's a lot harder race than it would be with Paxton.
James Talarico's strategy may have worked for this Democratic primary, but he's going to have to get black voters in Harris County and Dallas County the same way anybody else is going to have to in order to become a Democrat to win in Texas. At some point, we're going to have to make black people and black priorities a higher priority to get higher turnout in black communities.
And that starts actually with black candidates, because what you see often is that the some of these incumbents in particular don't necessarily make the black community's issues a top priority. It really depends on the demographics. Certainly, the wider the electorate, the more diverse the electorate, the more people start to talk more broadly and more generally. And then that loses a lot of people because people do want the pinpoint. They want you to pinpoint their concerns. I don't care what constituency it is. They want to hear about what is important to them. There's just no doubt about that. So let me see in the chat here. Pub's done with Trump. War just getting. Yeah, I don't know. The war is going to obviously figure in huge. Apparently, we're spending $1 billion a day in the Middle East, which that's $1 billion a day of our tax money being spent in the Middle East. And then, I'm down in Southern Virginia, and I'm going to tell you right now, the gas prices are insane, and typically they're a lot lower down here than they are near the Washington D.C. area. And I'm telling you, in the Washington D.C. area, they're high. It's like $3, 30 cents a gallon. You're going to feel that, and you're starting to flirt with $4 gasoline. Everybody's going to feel that. Yeah, I hate it too. I hate that the Democratic senators are willing to send money for this war. It is completely ridiculous. And then why and for what? And it hasn't been articulated yet why we're in Iran. Obviously, we're in Iran because Donald Trump wants to please Benjamin Netanyahu. I mean, that's just what it is. And then when you start sending billions in tax money over there, people are going and then telling American people that we can't do this or we can't do that because we can't pay for it all at the same time. I mean, it gets a little bit ridiculous. One thing about Talarico and Crockett, they basically had the same views. I mean, it came down to which person stylistically do you want to run. We did hear a ton about electability, which I don't necessarily buy into at all. I think that there was an electability factor for her in a state that has so many black residents and black voters out there, many of whom were very excited about her and would have shown up in November big time. So I thought the electability thing was quite ridiculous. And so Talarico is going to have to find a way to really make those voters extremely enthusiastic for his campaign. And that means speaking specifically to their issues. And of course, this is always the trap. This is always the problem. This is always the conflict. When you start speaking as a candidate, black or white, specific to black issues, you tick off some of the electorate who might be white sitting there thinking, okay, well, he's for that. So now that to me is usually a Republican. But a lot of these candidates that want to get Republican light or lean Republican or moderate leaning right voters, that's when you start disavowing things that are quote black agenda items. So this is always the push pull. Okay, just so they don't have a choice. Tell me what to do. Let me see. Texas can't win. Yeah, and that's the question. Can Texas win? Can the Democrats win Texas without black voters? They will certainly can't win without them. But the bigger piece is how enthusiastic are they going to be? How enthusiastic and how can he somehow get black voters out there really running? We know what that looks like. It looks like what happened with Barack Obama when he was able to build what is of course now known as the Obama coalition. Hispanic voters, some white voters, and of course black voters powering and that being the base of the party. That was hugely successful for Barack Obama. Let me think. Yes, and black candidates can't win without Hispanics. Well, I don't know about that. One might think that black candidates can't win without Hispanic votes. That's probably true in Texas, but you never know. If you build a coalition that gives you some Hispanic voters and you get black voters showing up in the numbers that they can show up in, which is yet to happen. It didn't happen on Tuesday, and you get a small percentage of white voters. I don't know about that. The real thing here that Gary Chambers was talking about is that too many black voters sat home for whatever reason. That group in Texas is never showing up to the full extent of their power. And if they did, they really could put anybody they want in office. And again, we do know what that looks like. It's happened before. Will it happen again? I don't know. Because it's really hard to get people out. But you gotta have a get out the vote. You have to have a get out the vote effort that really and truly is completely energetic. And yeah, we do need each other. And of course, I will say, Basil, that you know, so many issues are bread and butter issues that white folks, black folks, and Hispanic folks all agree on. Like you talk about affordability is a really great thing to talk about on that front because everybody has the same reaction. I don't care who you are, Democrat or Republican, to $3 gasoline, $3.30 gasoline. You're going to look at that and you're going to wince, and everyone is going to wince together. Everybody wants to be able to buy a house. I mean, that is what is considered the American dream. Everybody wants to be able to set their kids in a direction that was better and stronger than the one that they were in when they were growing up. Everybody wants generally the same things when it comes to money and achieving the American dream. The question is, of course, how do we get there? How do we get there? And we get into the details of that. I also think, too, across the board, and I don't think this is a particularly partisan issue, I think people hate watching their tax dollar go overseas. We're paying all this money in taxes, and we see billions of dollars getting spent overseas while being told that we don't have enough money to do this and do that over in the United States. I think people get very, very, very tired of that. And I think that crosses a lot of political demographics. We're seeing the far right now railing against the Iran war, railing against the Iran war. And so, what is that? I just think stuff like that. When you see Nick Fuentes and Marjorie Taylor Greene and members of the Black Caucus in Congress saying the same thing about a war, you know that some of these issues do, in fact, transcend politics and ideology. Of course, the media doesn't want that. The media wants the cat fight. The media wants the food fight because that's what sells. That's what gets the clicks and sells and sells ads to the click through rate. So I mean, but really in reality, most people are tired of seeing their tax dollar go overseas. Let's go back to the chat. Why don't you just yeah, Adams. I've never liked California that much. I just never liked California. I'm an East Coast person, so that's who I am. Never been particularly impressed by California. No offense, but that's why I don't move there. Away from yeah, I think I'm pretty smart. Yeah, but I might not be. Maybe you're smarter. Who knows? But I will say, I'm Lauren Burke. This is Lauren Live, by the way. It is 2:25 p.m. on the East Coast in Virginia, where I am. I will say this. I worked in media and in politics. ABC News, USA Today, AP. In another life, I was actually a contract photographer for Associated Press. Worked for the Hill newspaper on Capitol Hill, and I've worked for 4 members of Congress. I've worked in politics in New York and Virginia. And I've worked on the state level in politics and on the federal level. It's been an interesting career. Let's go through the chat. New York, then, dummy. I love it. I love the haters. Go haters, go. Hey, baby, Adams. I'm from the Bronx. It ain't. It ain't. You ain't. You ain't. You ain't gonna do nothing with nobody from the Bronx. Just so you know. We need each other. We do need each other. Whether or not we can work together as a country to get some of these problems solved is a very interesting question. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to answer it anytime soon because our politics are so divisive. There is a sort of a problem with the fact that these parties right now, particularly the Republican Party, has really devolved into the Trump Party, the MAGA Republican Party, doesn't really want to solve problems. They just want to shovel and embezzle money to their friends through government contracts. They want to hide the Epstein files and shovel money into the Middle East. That's been the project now, apparently, which is strange because that's not what Donald Trump campaigned on. But here we are. California too expensive, but better than Texas. California. One thing you got to say that's good about California, of course, is the beaches and the weather. Weather's outstanding. I've been to Texas. I think the Texas barbecue is better than anything you find in California. Texas is cool. Texas is a cool state. It really is, and just flat. I love a rodeo. Love Austin scene is amazing. The Austin live scene is absolutely incredible. Uh, Also, I'm tired of black folks being used to reject progressive politics. That's not necessarily the case with Texas race. We heard this Cuomo. Yeah, that's complicated. The Cuomo thing is a little bit complicated. I could talk all day on Andrew Cuomo, but this episode is going to remain about James Talarico and Jasmine Crockett. Nobody can win without The whole coalition. Yeah, it's true. And that's becoming increasingly true, Steve, with this idea that, obviously in a diverse country, nobody can win without the whole coalition. The bigger the races get, more nationalized in terms of like when you want to run a national presidential race, yeah, you do need the whole coalition. You absolutely do need the whole coalition. And that's the thing. But the problem is it makes your campaign more general because you have to appeal to more people. You have to appeal to everybody. And the more that you appeal to everybody, the less candid and authentic you sound as a candidate. So that's the problem. That's the balancing act. People want candor. They want authenticity. They want you to tell them, what you believe in. It's one thing you hear about Trump all the time, whether you agree with him or not. We never had any problem figuring out what he believed in. I mean, he's just saying it. And that is what people want. They may vote against it, and that's what they want. But what they don't like is games and half truths and nonsense and not really saying what you really believe. It's just kind of like they don't want that. They want somebody who's going to say it plain and say it blunt. This is why Crockett has a lot of fans, even though she lost. She didn't have enough fans on election day this past Tuesday, but she still has a lot of fans out there because her way of delivering a message that's very candid is extremely strong, and people are aware of that. Okay, so I'm Lauren Burke. Please hit the like button. Really, really appreciate it. Really puts out the channel out there. Please hit the like button and the subscribe button if you can. That'd be much appreciated. I'm gonna go for a few more minutes here, just reading the chat as I go out the door. What's next for Jasmine Crockett? That's a really good question. I don't think anybody knows yet. The problem is on the federal level, because the Democrats don't control the jobs and all the agencies across the government, and Donald Trump, of course, has 3 more years. She can't just get like a job in the federal government, which was typically what would happen if, say, like if Joe Biden was president, she'd probably find a job for her. But you have to remember that Jasmine Crockett is an attorney, and attorneys are never out of a job. And also with her name rec, the other thing about her is that she's got huge presence on social media, so she should be able to turn that into something using her platform. Or she could probably run again for something else. Certainly I can imagine her running again for something else in the near future. California is expensive. Did that one. It's good. Trump should have never put in his spot a Republican. We need each other in Mexico. I think I've covered almost everything in the chat. I want to thank everybody for joining on this Saturday in the middle of the day. I just threw this up. Tomorrow I'll probably be back with something else in the morning at about 9 o'clock, 9 a.m., and then maybe something at 9, 8 at night, see how the news goes. um, but don't be shy in the chat. And I see that people are not shy. So I don't care about disagreement one way or the other, Democrat or Republican. I've mostly voted Democrat in my life. I voted for a few Republicans, but typically I would say 95% of the time I voted Democrat. My mother worked for a Democratic politician in New York, but that was at a time when really there was no big ideological. As a local member of the New York State Assemblyman, and the ideological levels are a lot lower on the local level. People want the same things. They want their streets paved. They want their general services done. And so she worked in politics at a time when you didn't have a whole lot of ideological issues. But at any rate, I am effectively, I would say that I'm mostly a Democrat, but it's not that I don't see from time to time the Republican Party have some really good ideas. Um, and today, by the way, is a day shout out to Jesse Jackson Sr. and his family. They're burying Jesse Jackson today in Chicago. Also, a shout out to our military service members, 6 of them that were tragically killed in Iran. And we need to think about their families as they come home and those funeral services happen. And one of them was a 20-year-old individual from Iowa, which is insane, completely crazy. It's a terrible thing. And for what we don't really know yet. Yeah. How are we going to do that? I guess I'll take this as one of the last questions. Narvel, Narvel Hayes. Narvel Haynes. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's hard because I do think that there's a legitimate reason to feel like you're told to vote, you're told to vote, you do vote, and then nothing really fundamentally changes. People get tired of that. The way you get people to vote is you show them that their vote matters. And you show them that when they do vote, something actually changes in their life and in their community. That is how you get people to understand the importance of voting. It can't always happen. We understand that, but I'm telling you, the Democratic Party has not done a good job at showing people how their vote matters in terms of policy, hard policy, things changing, the downtown corridor getting better than it was, affordability, life getting easier in terms of taxes coming down. It is a lot. There's a lot of ways to show voters and get voters to believe that voting matters. And understanding the importance of voting doesn't come automatically. There does have to be a push for it. I do understand the cynicism, though, in certain communities because certain things never change over really long periods of time. People get very jaded and very annoyed. Totally understood. But right now, in particular, as our democracy hangs in the balance, I mean, it's very important to vote. Oh, wow. So I was wondering if Trump was going to show up at Dover Air Force Base. I wondered about that. Yeah, that is something that is a crazy thing. Him not showing up to that is just nuts. But like I said, as I go out here, we need to keep in our thoughts the families of those who were killed. These people are in their 20s, and it just changes the trajectory in the life of a family when that happens. And it's part of the reason why public policy and voting is so important. You get a president in office that wants to flex with the lives of other people's children, and this is what you end up with. You end up with a crazy situation like we have with Donald Trump. It means something who's in charge. It really does mean something who's making these decisions. And so that's something that people need to understand about the importance of voting right there. I see we've got over 1,000 views for this video. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate anybody out there who can just hit the like button. Um, I'm kind of staring off to the side here. I'm looking in the background at an iPad where I'm watching in the background the funeral of Jesse Jackson Sr. And man, are people talking long. Ooh, they've got a guy that came up said he was going to talk for 30 minutes. He talked for 30 minutes. And I'm looking at the screen thinking, is that the same guy? And yeah, it is. Anyway, the race between James Talarico and Jasmine Crockett was very interesting and very exciting. Talarico won, and we'll see what happens next. Um, Texas actually may be fool's gold for Democrats. That may be true. DKT 4377. We see millions on Beto. That's true. I mean, Beto O'Rourke's race was a $100 million race, a $100 million race, and he lost. And if that doesn't say red state, I don't know what the heck does. I mean, they thought for some reason he could do it, but he barely lost. I think it was a 2% type race. But it's true. He won't win without the black vote. Talarico's going to have to find a strategy for that. He's going to have to find a strategy for that. And it's going to take more than just talking generally about the Ten Commandments and stuff like that. What Democrats tend to do is sort of set up a situation where they give black voters these sort of performative, perfunctory things and not real hard policy. And there needs to be somebody out pushing for conversations around really hard policy. And remembering Jesse Jackson, that was one of his functions in his heyday, and particularly in the 80s and 90s, which was to get people to commit to hard policy and not just fooling around and talking generally and in general introspective ways. Now, what exactly are you going to do for this community when you come in to office? That is the question. So there's a huge question. There's a huge question to be asked there about exactly what the ask is. Yeah, that's probably true. Although a lot does state and happen, you can't pass it without Congress. But I will say, a lot happens on the state and local level. Um, Not pass the people's agenda if you don't have control of Congress. Well, I think Democrats are about to win control of Congress. Of course, assuming that Donald Trump doesn't try to steal the elections. Uh, we'll see. Okay, TCUJ6JC. Jasmine Crockett needs to reinvent herself. or move to a blue state and run. I think she'll. I actually think she'll be fine. She'll probably run for. I'm destined. I'm convinced she'll probably run for something else. She built quite a platform as a member of Congress. Very impressive platform. She has been able to make herself a national politician through that platform, and she is definitely somebody who I think certainly we haven't seen the last of. So the people out there sort of wondering what she's doing, I bet she probably hasn't completely fully figured out what she's doing. It takes a while to recalibrate and figure all that out because so much of what happened on Tuesday was an example of a race that she should have won and was supposed to win. And that's not how it's supposed to go down. When you lose a race that you were supposed to win, you really have to sit back and analyze, what you're doing and what the plan is moving forward. Mm. Well, it's true that black people aren't a monolith. For the most part, they're voting for the Democratic Party, even overwhelmingly. Even Elon has set up shop here in Texas. Like the Dems are gonna upset the Republicans. Yeah, I agree. It's gonna be hard. It is unlikely that Democrats upset the Republicans. I think that's gonna be challenging. Very challenging. But again, in a wave year where you have a president sending billions of your tax money to Iran and a president who's underwater in his polling, that's the year. If it's going to happen, it's a year like this one. If it's ever going to happen, this is the year it can happen. So, I'm endorse her opponent. Where's the smoke? I don't think Obama endorsed her opponent. Didn't Obama endorse her? I don't think so. Yeah, where is the smoke? So anyway, y'all, thanks for joining. Please hit the like button. Really appreciate talking to everybody. I'll be back probably tomorrow with something because news is always breaking. I really appreciate everybody chiming in. Yes, everybody is bothering you to hit the doggone like button because hitting the damn like button changes the algorithm on you can make change on YouTube. You can make change on YouTube. So by hitting the silly ass like button or the thumbs up button, as it were. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody chiming in and with the questions. Really appreciate questions, whether we agree or disagree. I think the only people who thought that it's given there's no this honestly she complicated things. Yeah, I mean, Jasmine Crockett is. You have to remember, of course, Steve, that in the end, the Democrats are not in power. They're not in power. They can't overpower Donald Trump with the power that they have now. They don't have enough power to do that. So what it comes down to, unfortunately but true, is semantics and theater presentation. And Jasmine Crockett was really great at the theater presentations in a lot of these hearings against the Trump officials. And she was really good too at running down factual information as she did it. Now, does that really change policy? Does that really change the trajectory of things in terms of policy or in terms of money allocation across the country? No, it doesn't. But a lot of people in the Democratic Party have been whining about Democrats not being strong enough, not being energetic enough to push back against Trump. And Crockett did that really well, which is why she became a Democratic star. How much for any? I don't know the answer to that. Texas Blue Wave crew. How much from any Democrats crossover? Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. That's something that Gary Chambers would know the answer to. Because he knows that type of stuff. If you go to Gary Chambers' account on X and probably on TikTok, I usually for some reason catch him on X, but I'm sure he's on TikTok as well. He probably at some point answer that type of question. He really looks into the numbers, which some of it is just basic analysis of how many eligible voters are in a certain space in a certain ethnic group, et cetera, and so on, and how many didn't show up. That voter eligible group is not showing up in the Black community and in a lot of places. So at any rate, this is Lauren Burke. This was Lauren Live. I do appreciate the questions. Please hit the like button. And again, think of the families of those who lost already in freaking Iran, which is absolutely amazing to me. I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.
Thank you. Are you watching now?
Yeah. No, I was watching on left, but it's excellent. I love it. love it. I love the traffic's flowing out. You were in Brooklyn last night. Where?
I was in Bushwick.
Okay, my grandmother's house is in Crown Heights.
Oh, yeah.
So when I saw you, I was trying to look at what the pizza place was to see where.
As soon as we got there, someone recognized the pizza place. They're like, we gotta get out of here. Someone had
get out. It was great.
blown up our spot.
This show is freaking fantastic.
Thank you.
Love it, man. Love it.